is Lo Sontag, and you're in Class 3 of Civil Democracy and the U.S. Constitution. Please click that subscribe button because that takes this class to more people and help more people. In the United States, the Constitution is the final formal law, and Article 1 is the Constitution's cornerstone. It defines the legislative branch's structure and power. Article 1 is the longest part of the Constitution, and that's because the founding generation thought that Congress would be the most powerful and most dangerous branch of government. Yet, its principles are not static. They are tested by modern crises, such as the constitutional crisis of Yemen's Signal Gate situation and the current administration's attempt to erode democracy domestically. The U.S. role in Yemen exposes the challenge of our Constitution when met with players that blatantly lack respect for norms, traditions, and rules of law, and the Congress compromised by corporate dollars. Article 1, Section 8 grants Congress sole authority to declare war, yet successive presidents have exploited the 2001 Authorization for Use of Military Force, AUMF, originally targeting al-Qaeda post 9/11, to justify unauthorized strikes against such targets as the Houthi rebels in Yemen. This forever war exemplifies executive overreach, sidelining Congress and distorting the framers' intent. The War Powers Resolution of 1973, designed to check such balances, has become a paper tiger, ignored as bombs drop and Congress funds endless conflicts. My aim here today is to equip you with a cursory understanding of Article 1, facilitating informed discussion. Let's meet live, let's talk in person, discuss this, and help you with engaging and with your civic responsibilities, and hopefully make you less nervous about your power in regards to current events. Before we begin, let's go over some definitions. Checks and balances are a mechanism which distribute power throughout a political system, preventing any one institution or individual from exercising total control. But I think the one thing you should remember is checks and balances does not mean that every branch of government is equal. The legislative branch is clearly the most powerful branch of government. So checks and balances simply mean that you can't act without considering, talking to, or cooperating with other people. It doesn't mean that all branches of government are equal. And it's okay if you did think that before, but that is not correct. Another definition, elastic. Elastic powers. The Constitution grants Congress considerable flexibility in interpreting powers, which is different than expressed powers, also known as enumerated. And we've talked about enumerated powers before, but let's for a reminder, refresher, enumerated powers, which are expressed powers, are the powers that the Constitution explicitly lists, identify, and defined. Okay. Next one is ex post facto. It's a law that retroactively changes the legal consequence or status of actions that were committed or relationships that existed before the enactment of the law. Attainder, the forfeiture of land and civil rights suffered as a consequence of a sentence of death for treason or a felony. Next one, due process. Government actors must follow certain procedures before they deprive a person of a protected life, liberty, or property. Writ of habeas corpus. The purpose of a writ is to enforce rights, compel actions, or correct errors. Habeas corpus literally means to have the body of. It is an order issued by the court to a person who has detained another person to produce the body of the latter before it. The court then examines the cause and legality of the detention. Quorum, the minimum number of people or assembly or society that must be present at any of its meetings to make the proceeding of that meeting valid. Governance, the basic principles of good governance are accountability, leadership, integrity, stewardship, transparency. So, those are all the definitions that you should know, and we'll be talking about, you'll be hearing them, you're like, oh yes, as we go through this. Article 1, structure and historical context. For more context, view the introduction and the Heart and Soul videos. The Constitution was ratified in 1788. Article 1 emerged from the failures of the Articles of Confederation. It established a bicameral Congress to balance the state and federal interests, embedding checks and balances to prevent tyranny. Its 10 sections meticulously outline legislative powers, limits, and processes, ensuring accountability and adaptability. And I'm going to just go over a little bit how it's broken down. I'm going to go over like three kind of areas of the 10 section. Section 1, that's powers in a bicameral Congress. Section 2 and 3 define the House, population base, and the Senate, equal state representation, ensuring both public responsiveness and state sovereignty. Sections 4 through 10 detail elections, legislative procedures, enumerated powers, taxation, war declaration, and critical limits, bans on ex post facto laws. I've already gone into detail on Section 8. I'm going to briefly touch on each section. And in Section 7, I'm going to go slightly more into detail so you can understand the process of how a law is made. Please note the Constitution is a relatively simple read. I urge you to read it for yourself. It's like 15 pages. It's shockingly uncomplicated. So, Section 1 establishes a bicameral Congress, Senate and the House as the sole holder of federal legislative power. Section 2, the House of Representatives comprises members elected every 2 years with seats allocated by state population, minimum 1 per state, and adjusted every 10 years via the census. Representatives must be at least 25 years old and citizens for 7 years and residents of their state. Enslaved black people counted as 3/5 of a person for the purpose of state population. Section 2 also grants the House the sole power of impeachment. Section 3, the Senate grants 2 senators per state serving 6-year terms who must be at least 30 years old, U.S. citizens for 9 years, and state residents. The Vice President presides over the Senate and votes only to break ties. Section 4, states regulates congressional election timing and procedures, though Congress can alter these rules. Section 5, each chamber sets its own rules, requires a quorum to act, and may expel members with a 2/3 vote. Section 6. Members receive salaries and cannot hold other federal offices during their term, preventing conflicts of interest. Section 7. Bills require approval from both chambers and the president. Congress can override vetoes with a 2/3 majority in each. Like I said, I'm going to go over a little bit more on this. Let's go over how is a bill made. We're going to do a school rock thing, but I can't sing. Anyway, 1, a bill is introduced in either the House or the Senate. Spending bills must start in the House. Both chambers must pass the bill in identical form. 3, the bill goes to the president who can sign it into law or veto it. 4, if vetoed, Congress can override the veto with a 2/3 majority vote in both the House and the Senate, a high threshold requiring bipartisan support. 5, if the override succeeds, the bill becomes law. If it fails, the bill dies. 6, even enacted, the laws can be challenged in court constitutionally where judges have the power to strike them down via judicial review. Section 8. So we're going to go to Section 8. Congress has enumerated powers, including taxing, regulating commerce, declaring war, and maintaining postal services. Section 9. Congress is barred from suspending habeas corpus, passing attainder laws, passing ex post facto laws, or granting titles of nobility to protect civil liberties. Section 10. States cannot coin money, form treaties, or impose tariff, ensuring federal supremacy in critical governance areas. Several constitutional amendments have had a significant impact on Article 1, shaping its interpretation and application. These amendments reflect the evolving and breathing nature of the Constitution and how it relates to governance. The 17th Amendment, ratified in 1913, altered the method of electing senators, shifting from state legislatures to direct popular vote. This change enhanced democratic participation, aligning the Senate more closely with the public's will. And the thing is, Amendment number 17, the 17th Amendment is something that the Republican Party is trying to repeal. The 14th Amendment, ratified in 1868, has profound implications for Article 1 by expanding the scope of congressional powers to protect civil rights. Its equal protection and due process clauses have been instrumental in shaping legislative priorities and addressing social inequities. It also removed the 3/5 of a person clause in Section 2. The 16th Amendment, ratified in 1913, granted Congress the authority to levy income taxes without apportionment among the states, significantly expanding its fiscal power. And so let's go a little bit more into checks and balances and the modern challenges. War powers. The Yemen conflict underscores Congress' abdication of its role, Article 1 role. Despite vetoing U.S. complicity in 2009, lawmakers continue funding Saudi-led campaigns, betraying their constitutional duty. Citizens United. This 2010 ruling unleashed unlimited corporate election spending, eroding democratic integrity. By outsourcing campaigns to super PACs, for example, Trump's 2024 bid relied a lot on dark money. Politicians prioritized donor interests over public good. The Supreme Court has also shaped the interpretation of Article 1. McCulloch versus Maryland, 1819, affirmed Congress's implied powers via the necessary and proper clause. Citizens United, 2010, redefined campaign finance, enabling corporate dominance, a stark departure from the framers' vision of representative governance. The challenge that lies before us are not in nostalgic appeals to idealized government, but in constructing adaptive, inclusive coalitions that reimagine democratic practice for a polarized era. As Pippa Norris notes, democratic systems survive not through inertia, but through deliberate, collective recommitment to balancing majority rule with minority protections, as urgent as it is unfinished. So I say this. Do not lose hope. U.S. democracy has resilience. While threats loom, executive overreach, dark money, institutional subversion, history shows that democracies can rebound. Post-Watergate reforms and global anti-corruption movements like Brazil's Lava Jato prove civic engagement and cross-partisan coalitions can restore accountability. Article 1 is not a relic. It's a blueprint for resistance. Congress must reclaim its war powers, reject dark money, and uphold checks and balances. As Chomsky warns, the question isn't whether power will corrupt, the question is who's holding the whip. Let us wield Article 1 not as a shield for complacency, but as a sword for justice. When you understand Article 1, you understand that you must demand transparency and hold leaders accountable. Democracy survives not by chance, but through relentless collective courage. This is Lo Sontag with Civil Democracy the U.S. Constitution. Thank you for joining. Please click below and subscribe.